I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's going to be the highest flag in the room.
Well, thank you all for attending our August 7th regular meeting. We're going to start off first with a public hearing for a resolution adopting the village procurement policy and adoption of local law number 5 of 2023 to amend chapter 26, article 4 of the village code procurement policy. Can I have a motion to open the meeting? Have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's great. Anyone who's interested in asking any questions, we're basically revising our procurement policy and adjusting the limits of when we go to basically purchase something that, excuse me 1 second.
I can address it later if you would like. I can
Yeah,
give a
go
quick
ahead.
explanation. So this is really, right now the village has a code with the procurement policy set forth in the local law, in the code. The problem is when the thresholds change at the state level and things like that, it requires the village to have a public hearing and to go through an entire local law process. So what this local law does is it kind of takes the specifics of the procurement policy out of the code and just refers to the procurement policy that then gets adopted by resolution of the board. And the real purpose of it is it makes life much easier when the board needs to make a change instead of having to have a public hearing, which isn't required for a procurement policy change. So this is just kind of taking the substance out of the code and putting it into a policy, which is also in the agenda packet that'll be adopted by resolution of the board and then amended as necessary.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any questions on anything like that? Okay, if there are no comments, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion.
Second, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Terrific, thank you. Motion passes. The public hearing being closed. Next item would be the public comment portion of our meeting. Anyone in the audience have any particular subject matter or anything that you'd like to ask, talk about?
I do, yeah.
Can you just hear?
Sean Hegarty, 4 Belvoir Drive, Washingtonville.
Thank you.
I believe we sell water from down at the DPW, truckloads of it.
Yes.
What do we receive in payment for that?
The bill for that is $16.16 per thousand. So
So it's the same as it was at the old Spindler spot base?
if it was 16, yeah, they just carried that number over and that's what they've been paying. So just for an example, the last bill that we sent out, we received a check for like, $17,000.
Isn't that rather on the low side for,
No, I checked with Wallkill, they're at $20. So, I mean, we potentially could increase it, but the other municipality that sells water is at about $20, I've been told.
okay. At one point they were talking about discussing letting outside contractors dump sewage over into the sewer plant. Is that going on? And if so, are we making anything from it?
No, we're not pursuing that at the moment because there are, when we had our initial conversations, there are a number of different hurdles that you would have to get over to allow that to happen. And I think it entails like your speedies permit. And the biggest concern that we would have is you don't know really what you're getting. So it could be, could be septic, it could be septic and oil. We just don't know the contents of it.
Sorry, that
So
makes sense to me.
we feel it'd be better just to leave it as is and not become, it sounds attractive for a revenue stream, but at the end of the day, it could cause us more headaches in the operational portion of running the plant.
Even the selling of the water, that doesn't seem too financially. Somebody has to be there to release the water, right?
No, we have, there's a hydrant right at the gate. They pull in. We have a log book. They log when the water's there. The sewer plant guys are there anyway watching. And at the end of the day, the sewer plant operators, they take their logs, and at the end of the month, they send them over. We create an invoice on our side, and we bill.
And one last question is, and it's about the floodway on the retention pond. That was blown out,
At
the
the
floodway
floodway?
was blown out under the Hudson's regime. I brought it up at that point, I brought it up at every administration since then. The last thing that Mayor Bucko said was, he had an engineer looking at this right now. But that should be getting done under Rising, whatever that program is.
New York Rising.
Right.
So you're talking about the retention pond for Bernadette? What retention pond are you talking about?
The retention pond on, between
Newcastle?
Ahern, yeah, Newcastle.
Okay.
Anything,
As
that's,
far as dredging it?
no. I brought pictures in multiple times.
Okay.
There's a cement floodway, and it's at a V, so
Yes.
as the water gets higher, it lets a little more out. There's no sense in it being there because it's all washed away on both sides. So this happened under the flood. It's been brought up every administration. I finally told his engineer was looking at it to do something.
Okay.
So I just want to see where is it going, because that's part of the reason, when the water's coming down, the pond is not holding anything. That's a retention pond. So as it gets higher, the V gets a little bigger, but it's still not letting a full blast of water out of that pond.
Okay. To be honest, I feel like this is the first time I'm hearing of this. I will.
You were at meetings when I spoke about it, I know that.
Yeah, I just
You might not
don't
be listening.
recall what, if anything was done. Chris, are you aware of this? All right, so I'll catch up with him in the morning and we'll take a look at it and figure out what needs to be done if there's an issue.
There's a huge issue. There's no sense in, you might as well pull the cement floodway out.
Yeah.
It's going right around it on both sides. And I guess the one last question I'll ask is, the sewer cap over by Vern Allen Park on 94, where they raised the road, at one time Chris and their guys raised it because it was getting flooded, people were opening it. Now it's getting flooded again because the road is higher than it again. That needs to be raised again.
Do you know which
You
one
got-
we're talking about, Chris? Okay,
Yeah, the water's just going right in there when it's draining, so
okay,
that's messing up our sewage,
okay. Yeah,
which seems funny, but
Aye,
pure, good
aye.
water, clean water is not good for a sewer.
yeah. Can you just make
Thank
this
you.
back for me? Thanks, Sean, appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. Yes?
Yeah, John Donaldson, 4 Emerson Drive. Any update on paving Emerson Drive?
Yes, well, yeah, we do have an update to the work that's been done on the road. I think it's now been completed, or is there, we just went and did some porching of some of the work that was done previously. So we've inspected everything. We had did Tilcon or one of did that guy ever come out to give you the?
I haven't heard from him.
Haven't heard from him, so we gotta chase him down. So we're pursuing the paving companies to come out and kind of look at the road and give us an idea of depth of asphalt and so forth, because one of the issues with that road being Secord, maybe not as much as Emerson, is that the sides of the road are very narrow as far as the pavement and then the underlayment of item 4. It's not real thick. So we need to come up with something to build up the side of the road and then obviously have the pavement and then do the paving. So we need to get Tilcon down there, and we've been chasing this guy now for a couple of weeks, so we gotta make that a priority and get that in. We can't pave until we get our financing in place, because we just don't have the funds available to do the paving. We still have the CHIPS program, right, that we've talked about, but we can't utilize that money until we spend the money first out of our budget, and we produce all our bills, and then they reimburse the village for those costs. But we can't do any paving, any large projects at the moment, because we just don't have the funding available within our budget to do.
We have to do the lead survey there, so.
Right, the other thing, thank you, the other thing that we sent letters over to Emerson, Douglas, and Secord was to do the lead survey, because we need to have that survey in place, because if there are any lead lines, we need to address those lead lines before we would do any paving, or otherwise we'd be digging up the road again. So we're waiting for everybody. We've actually had 2 or 3 calls today. Most of the folks told me they got the information on Friday. So based on that, as calls are coming in, we'll address that and get that that portion, to get those 3 roads in the books, and then we can plan on doing the paving. We're hoping the way the bond borrowing might be going to deficit bonding is that potentially mid-September is when we would be receiving the money necessary to get us through the rest of the year and taking care of just general water, sewer, general fund, and any capital projects where money has been expended. I would say September, potentially October would be a time frame to maybe get that road paved, October, November-ish. The plants are normally open until December, so we definitely want to get it done. It's been a long time, a lot of work has been done, we just want to, we just need the money in place in order to do it.
Did the state approve the bond for the Washington Building?
The state did approve the bond, both the Assembly and
Governor?
the Senate, thank you. They both passed it. The governor just signed it just maybe a week and a half ago or so. So with that in place, what we're doing, our bond people now are basically out there trying to find a lender who will give us somewhat of we'll call it a better rate. Like the bond that we just had approved for 1.5, we got it 4.79, which is really, really good. That's for the sweeper that was purchased about maybe 5 years ago or so. And then the other piece of it was for the paving, for the money that was borrowed for the paving of our roads. Now with that, we had only Decker, we had Smith Court and Hayes Place paved. That looks like it totaled somewhere in the neighborhood between $400,000 and $500,000. Apparently, it looks like we borrowed about $900,000. And so the difference of that, we have not been able to locate in an account. And our fear is that, that additional delta of that money has been expended on other things. So yes, we're waiting for the bond folks, we have 2 banks, 2 lending institutions that we're interested in. One is said no, the other one said yes. The one that said no, we're trying to pursue because they're the ones that gave us this 4.79 rate. The other company is coming in at slightly under 7%. So as you know, go for mortgage today, you're going to be in the 7% area. And since you brought it up, I'll just mention that when we're calculating this out, and this is just rough estimates at the moment, but for every person that we bill, we consider that a unit, okay? So we have approximately 1,900 units that are out there. If we were to borrow $3 million at 7%, that rough estimate at the moment is coming in at about $225, rounding up a little bit, for each resident to pay on an annual basis for the next 10 years. If we borrowed $4 million, that would be an amount of a payback of $569,600. That annual fee per family would be $299.79. And what we're trying to do is figure out if we can create this bill, this charge, as like your facilities charge, your facilities fee, like it is on the sewer plant, where you see the $37.57. Set that up somehow that on an annual basis, or even maybe a quarterly basis, we could send out a bill to collect this money to pay down this now bond that we would be entertaining, or at least in the beginning it will be a ban, and then after so many years we have to convert it to bonds. Does everybody understand that? Yeah, I mean, the 3 million or 4 million, the delta in there is what we're trying to determine. We'll have a better idea come the end of August, beginning of September. That'll be approximately 6 months, and we'll have a good idea budget-wise where our money is going in each department, and then being able then to borrow the correct amount of money. For an example, again, our sewer plant, we have a bond payment coming up for $400 and something thousand. The money that's in there right now cannot cover what we collected since we've been in office since April for the first and second billing. That money is somewhere in the neighborhood of 87, about $170,000, so we're shy to make that payment, and we probably will need this deficit funding to pay the bond to take care of the sewer plant. Because when we got that account back in April, the facilities charge had really nothing in it, it was zero.
200 and some odd dollars.
It was, we call it nothing. So that money that was been collected since,
April.
since April or since, over the last 6 years, 10 years, whatever money went in there, they didn't save to use to pay the bond. They took that money out of that account and spent it on something else, which we could have been ahead of the game, we could have been paying interest over the last 6 years while they were building the plant and could have been ahead of the game. But none of that was done, and unfortunately, we're all gonna have to pay for it. Any questions on that? Any comments from the board? Okay. Anybody else have anything else? Okay. All right. Susan, it's not on your agenda because we didn't want to print another copy, but I just asked Susan if she can give an update on the building permit or building department's bi-weekly report.
So for the 16th through the 31st of July, they issued 21 building permits, 5 COs or CCs, certificate of compliance or certificate of occupancies, 5 were issued out, 8 violations were issued, 0 were remedied at that point. There were 5 municipal searches and 4 fire safety and property maintenance inspections done. In total, the fees collected by the building department were $5,103.20. And we're trying to track that to make sure that our building department is not a financial burden on the rest of the village.
Cool. Any questions from anybody? Okay, thanks Susan, appreciate that. Next is the lead pipe inventory. So again, this is what we mentioned at the last meeting. This is going to be village-wide, both the commercial and residential, and that we need to validate that every house, basically the water coming into the house is either copper or lead or, what's the other one?
Steel,
Yeah, steel.
not lead.
Right, thank you. So we just need to determine that, and again, we'll be sending letters out to different areas. We started with your neighborhood because of the paving. The next areas we're gonna attack are probably the older parts of the village first. Basically downtown area, all the businesses, Thornton, North Street, South Street, Phillips, Lark, maybe, I'd say, what else will we have? But in those general areas, because those are the older homes and we wanna get to those first if there are issues. And then to tie that, there was back in 2017, but the board never took advantage of trying to get some grant money that would hopefully pay for the removal and reconstruction or construction of putting in copper pipes. So we are keeping our eyes out and our ears open for if another particular grant will come down the road that we could apply for that. Because again, it would, at this point, it looks like it's our responsibility to change out those lines if they happen to be steel and or lead. So we'll keep you updated on that as it goes.
And that comes from the state. We didn't choose to do this on our own. The New York State is mandating this.
Right. Okay. We've already kind of touched base on this, but this is the financial 1.5 million, the bond for 4.79 is our interest rate. That'll be over 30 years. Those have been bands over the last several years, and we just converted it to bonds. Okay, next is an update regarding Rieger Homes High Grove and final dedications of roads and recreation fees. So we've been working very closely with the Rieger Homes owners and trying to get this whole situation tied up and completed so that the road dedications can be in place, and all the green areas, everything will be properly, monumented. The roads have been checked by our Chris and DPW, so that we can finalize everything and get the as-built drawings and put this project to sleep. The biggest reason is because right now, over the umpteen years, the people that live in that development have to drive their kids because the roads aren't dedicated. School buses don't ride on undedicated roads. So they have to park down at Woodfield and Ahern. So we're trying to get this done before school starts, or shortly there, could be at the day. But as soon as the Rieger Homes delivers all of the paperwork and it's reviewed by our council, then we will have a resolution to accept and dedicate the roads for the village, and then we'll be responsible for plowing and maintaining green areas, etc. Okay?
Can I ask a
The other-
question on that?
I'm sorry, Ken?
The retention basin over there, that's a very deep one,
Yes.
and there's a lot of stuff growing at the bottom. Should there be a fence put around it other than the post and beam fence, or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, it's
A
supposed to be-
security fence? Some little kid, there was a kid last year, they were looking for it. Some kid could get down there and get in the reeds and stuff like that, and you won't see him. It's a very deep hole. Somebody, go over and look at it.
Yeah, it's a multi-layer retention, detention.
Right.
You have one spillway.
They
do
can
a
go
second
down in
spillway.
there and you may
Maybe
not know
go
the
down
down they're
below.
looking from.
That's a good point. Chris, can you make a note that we could talk to Jimmy? If you can make a note as well. We'll talk to Jimmy in the morning. The other side of that too, from the recreation fees, in reviewing everything, the Rieger Homes has given the village an $18,000 check for recreation, but the recreation fund is zero. There's no money in the recreation fund. The other portion of it, there was 3 payments at different various amounts. The last amount is $30,000, and it was supposed to be used for road maintenance or something obscure, but there were 3 payments. We received 2 of those. So right now, we're expecting a check for $85,000, and that we're gonna utilize in our recreation fund. And for everybody that's been asking, which is also a little bit further down on the discussion points, but we are going to entertain the pickleball courts over at Burn Allen Park. At this point, we're gonna make it a kind of multi-use, but half of it will be set aside for pickleball courts, and the other half will still be unfinished, but, because we don't have that much money to do the whole thing. We wanna keep some of it open for kids riding their bicycles, and they do some rollerblading and stuff like that. And then the path around it is still there for moms and dads when they walk their young kids and strollers and so forth. So that'll be like phase 1. We do have a plan and a drawing that can give us 2 more courts on that half of it. So we're able to, increase that one side by 2. We could have a total of 5 courts if we can, get the painting, get the money for everything else. Steve's done a lot of work. Steve, do you want to add anything to any of this?
No, we have paving all set, the lines and all of that. And we wish we could do the whole thing at this point, but unfortunately, because the funds were limited to what we can do. But we're doing the best we can, and we know the people really want it.
Yeah.
I have another question on them. Are they gonna use anything to replace any of the equipment at the skateboard park?
Yeah, we actually, I don't know if you were here at one of the last meetings in March, I think it was, or
Probably not.
February maybe? There was a guy here giving a presentation on the
Yes, I was
skateboard
at that.
parks.
But that was
So we're still in
$400,000.
contact with him, we're talking, and he's putting together proposals and pricing and everything else. And then depending on how that comes back, we're gonna chase down grants, because we have a grant company now that we're working with that looks at everything that we ask them to basically look at. We have a website with a portal. It's really easy to locate grants, so potentially, depending on how much this stuff is gonna be, we're gonna end up, pursuing that. But in the meantime, our proposal is to pave half of Vern Allen Park and to repave what we have over at Woodfield. We're gonna remove the equipment, pave it, and then put the equipment back in place. And then as, I think his name was Steve, if he, comes with the proposal, then we'll address it and see what we can do as far as adding to that pad.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Do the plans at Burn Allen include the nets and fencing?
The fencing, we still need to price out, that's why we're being a little cautious on not trying to spend it all on paving. So, yeah, I mean, the plan shows, will include the paving and the lining of everything. Volunteers might be able to paint everything if they want, the different color, like latex finishes. The other thing that we've got some calls into fencing companies, they gave us, heights and lengths of what it's supposed to look like. So we're gonna price that out and see what it comes back at. We could do 1-2 courts, that's what we'll do, we'll use the recreation money for what it was put there for, recreation. And if we need to come up with some temporary solution, then we'll do that as well. Yeah, and I think, and I've talked to a few folks, there's a league, one of the gentlemen put together the drawings, Ken from Deckscapes, and he's also an instructor. When I was down there the other night, there was a group down there playing on Wednesday nights. So our plan is to get that hopefully set up as quick as we can. As soon as that check comes, we'll have the asphalt companies paving. We can install the netting ourselves, it'll be permanent, the poles, and then we could remove the nets in the wintertime and, see what we can do with the fencing, at least temporarily, so they can play, and then we get the prices, we can figure out what we can do from there.
We get calls all week long looking at pickleball
Yeah.
courts.
Yeah, and the other thing we'll be able to do, we're gonna check on the lighting, because we'll put that on a timer, because guys, can play at 10 o'clock at night or whatever the leagues wanna do. It's quiet over there, lights don't disturb anybody, and I'm aware of, the lights are pretty covered by the trees over there now. So we'll see where that goes. But everybody that we spoke to, like you said, they're calling, emails, and people are down there just making up their own, painting their own, or taping out their courts and playing, so it's good. Anything else? Cool. All right. The next is short-term rentals on local law from 2021. This is, basically protecting, we've had some issues, I guess, in the past with I'll just use the term Airbnbs and short-term rentals and things like that. So this law was created to eliminate or minimize short-term rentals. When we were checking into it, because we found some things that we appeared to be lacking, that the way the law was written, it was taking care of more of the business side of our zoning and not the residential side of the zoning. So, you could basically do something, across the street on Belvoir, you can do something, residential zones were open, which didn't make any sense, because that's
Which
really
I know
what
that
we need to protect. So, when we went in to check for the law, we found out that the law was not sent up to New York State and basically dedicated, I will call it, I'll use that word, it's not on file with the state. So we're gonna take the law as is, we're gonna send it up and have it filed so it becomes law, and then we're gonna go back and revise the law to fit more of what we're looking for in the residential zones. Is that clear? Everybody got it? Question?
Nancy Donaldson, 4 Emerson Drive. I heard other communities are looking into the long-term rentals of homes now. Do we have any thoughts about too many homes getting bought and rented out?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Unless it's a HOA involved, a council would know better than I don't believe that you can restrict long-term rentals of private property, because that's a private commodity. HOAs can do it, they can say required ownership for so many years before they're rented out. But I would refer to council on that one.
Yeah, I don't know of a law that I've seen that would restrict rentals permanently for rent, long-term. I mean, this is kind of the opposite, obviously, this law is short-term. It's something we could look at if the board has any interest, but I haven't seen one like that.
Yeah, me either. I mean, we're talking single-family homes, like, Weathervane is a good example because they've had at times their ratio of, someone was trying to buy something that they were getting denied, and it was because the bank keeps the statistics, or the property management keeps the stats on how many rental units versus owned units. And when the rentals outweigh, I guess, the ownership people living there, then, they've gotta change the mix. What I've seen on a couple of HOAs is that they are, in the sale, in the HOA, they create rules and regs that say you have to live in the house for the owner who buys it needs to live there for a year or 2 years before they can rent it. So it's just not an investment property out of the box.
Yeah, I just saw a neighboring town, I believe, was trying to get a law on the books about cutting back on rentals, and I think they're being sued right now, but I was just wondering,
Do you remember what municipality?
I'm assuming it was Monroe? right?
That might have been, only because I'm counsel for Monroe as well, that might have been a rental registry. They passed a law requiring registration of rental properties, so they, have an idea, and they did put certain restrictions and limitations on how many properties somebody could own and rent, like an entity couldn't have more than 3, I think it was.
Yes.
Yeah, there's several in Rockland that have that, where you
Yeah.
have to register your rental, which, is something I'd love to see in place here, because we have no way to chase down some of these landlords. And we need to be able to do that, especially if there's an emergency on the property.
I'm just wondering, I'd hate to see the village turn into a rental community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll check that out, Matthew. Thanks. Thank you. Cool. All right, the next item was discussed already. Next is the New York Conference of Mayors Conference for this year is September 17th through the 21st. I will be attending that class up in Lake Placid, and there is a resolution further down in the agenda to approve that. Also, there is a New York Conference of Mayor for Public Works Training Schools, so I shot that off to Chris Martino, our superintendent, for interest. It covers all the latest and greatest laws and new techniques, et cetera, so it's good stuff for networking. The next item was the pickleball courts. I think we've covered that, unless anybody has anything new and different. Next would be the deficit financing, and I think we covered that pretty well. Again, just maybe to reiterate, but the bond council is looking for additional funding. Again, we have 2 companies that were showing some interest. One kind of backed off. That was, again, the one that gave us the bond for the 4.79. So we're trying to hopefully get them on board so we can hopefully get a better rate than 7%. And again, that process will be moving fairly quickly. We do have a resolution tonight from our bond council that we need to pass in relation to the connection of the deficit financing. Anything else from the board? Any questions? Cool. Okay, just another note with September around the corner that our first meeting, which would be normally 9 on the 4th of September, is Labor Day. And so we're going to be moving the meeting to the 5th, which is a Tuesday. Okay? So you can mark your calendars. We'll update our website, etc. Okay? All right, so the next is a resolution to adopt a village procurement policy.
Mayor, just sorry for the interruption.
Okay.
The next resolution should come first, the adoption of the local law, after the close of the public hearing, because the policy is adopted pursuant to the law. So there's a resolution right after, should be local law number 5? Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll do that resolution, and then the procurement policy would follow that.
Oh, right behind it?
Yeah.
Okay. Should read it out?
You don't have to read the whole thing, you can do the, be it resolved portion, the sections at the bottom, you don't need to read the whereas and all of that.
I'm sorry, what section did I read?
Where it says now therefore be it resolved by
Okay.
the village.
Got it.
You don't, again, you don't have to read these, I don't know if I said this to the board before, it's up to you. You have the resolution before you, you're not required to read it, but some boards wish to do that, that's up to you.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, so we have a resolution in front of us to adopt the village procurement policy. Now therefore be resolved by the village board as follows. Section 1, all whereas paragraphs are incorporated herein by reference as those set forth in full. Section 2, the village board hereby adopts local law number 5 entitled Local Law number 5 of 2023 to amend chapter 26, article 4 of the village code procurement policy as attached hereto as scheduled A. Section 3, the village clerk is hereby directed to enter said local law into the minutes of this meeting and in local law books for the village of Washingtonville, and to give due notice of the adoption of said local law by filing the local law in the office of the Secretary of State in the state of New York. Section 4, this resolution shall be effective immediately. May I have a motion, please?
Make a motion.
We have Steve on the motion, we have Vernon on the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0, thank you very much. Alright. And now for the local law number 5 of the year 2023. At section 1, this is a repeal of Code of Village of Washingtonville, chapter 26, article 4 is hereby repealed in its entirety and shall be replaced with the local law language set forth herein, section 2. And the procurement, the following provisions shall be enacted to repeal and replace article 4 of chapter 26 as set forth in section 1 above. The policy hereby declared to be the policy of the village of Washingtonville that with respect to the contract of public works and public purchases, the village policy is to ensure the prudent and economical use of public money for the benefit of all inhabitants of the village and to facilitate the acquisition of facilities and commodities of maximum quality at the lowest possible cost, where public works and contracts are subject to the provision of New York State Municipal Law Article 5-A, public contracts. It shall be the policy of the village to comply with all applicable provisions of such articles. Anyone have any questions on the? Okay, have a motion, please.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, Susan on the motion, Steve on the second. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0, thank you. So Christine, maybe you could have Megan make copies for all the other department heads and make sure that they get those. I'd like them to sign for it as well initially, so we know that everybody's received it. Thank you. Okay, next resolution is to authorize Mayor Thomas D'Amico to attend the New York State Conference of Mayors Conference at a cost not to exceed $2,300 for the conference and hotel accommodations. Have a motion, please?
Motion.
Steve, second. Vernon? Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Next is a resolution to eliminate the $75 non-resident fee regarding registration with the Village of Washingtonville to utilize the village dog park. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Okay. Motion Don, second Steve. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Next is basically a resolution to authorize the village board to advertise for a village historian. Have a motion, please.
Motion.
Okay, Don on the motion, Steve on the second. Questions, comments?
Can I just explain to the public so they know?
Yep.
Every new municipality in New York State is required to have a historian. Typically, they do not get paid. They are responsible for the proper archival of records, as well as answering queries that may coming in regarding the history of the village. Unfortunately, our last one passed away. Not a difficult job, so if you know anybody who's got a love for the history of Washingtonville, please encourage them to apply. There are annual conferences and trainings that you can go that will help you work through them.
Thank you very much, Susan. All right, that was on the discussion point, so all in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Next is a resolution to amend the July 5th, 2023 resolution regarding the title of Megan Schiffmacher position to reflect it is a civil service clerk position. Have a motion, please.
Motion.
Steve on the motion, second, please.
Second.
Susan, any questions, comments? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Next is a resolution to accept the retirement resignation of the Department of Public Works employee William Pence effective September 15, 2023. Have a motion, please?
Motion.
Steve on the motion. Second, Vernon. Questions, comments? I'd like to do that with regret, and Chris will catch up and figure out, his last day and, do a little something for him. Okay? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Next is a resolution to authorize approval of public assembly permit for the Washingtonville Event Committee for the holiday market for the parade to be held on Saturday, December 2nd from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. and Sunday, December 3rd from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the Veterans Memorial Park located at 29 West Main Street. Said resolution is based upon receipt of certificate of insurance. Have a motion, please.
Motion.
Steve, second.
Second.
Donna. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Next is a resolution to authorize the approval of a public assembly permit for the Washingtonville Event Committee for the Community Day event to be held on Saturday, September 9th from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. at E.J. McLaughlin Square. Said resolution is based upon receipt of certificate of insurance. Have a motion?
Motion.
Steve, second.
Second.
Tom. Questions, comments? All in favor? Motion passed 5-0. Resolution to approve the change in the date for the community yard sale to Saturday, September 9th and Sunday, September 12th. September 9th is Saturday, Sunday is September 10th. Have a motion?
Motion.
Donna, second.
Second.
Steve. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Resolution to approve the license agreement with James and Ellen Levy, Ford Vandenhoven Lane, John Venable at 6 Secord Lane, and Sean E. Van Ice at 14 Bull Road to allow access through their property of the village of Washingtonville to gain entrance to the green areas for maintenance work. Have a motion?
Motion.
Steve. Have a second?
Second.
Vernon, second. Questions, comments? Just some internal comments, just to let you know, these areas had some damage due to the last recent rainstorms that we had. And we've had issues there in the past, but it was Chris and I went out on a Sunday while it was raining, and we went and visited these locations because we've had complaints of, water running across driveways and easements not doing the right thing and so forth. So went through that afternoon, and we found a bunch of different areas that had, real concerns. So these, we needed to have basically these agreements so that we could get onto their property or through their properties to investigate and fix what we're trying to resolve. Okay? And there'll be actually 2 more coming. I dropped off those letters today for the Spears family and, where are the other gentlemen? Sendena. They're on the corner of Watson and North Street. So we're waiting for those letters because there was a drainage pipes that were installed in the back, and they were backing up during the real heavy rains that we were having. So we want to check those and get that resolved. Okay. Any other questions, comments? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. To authorize the approval of public assembly permit for St. Mary's Church to hold a yard sale on Saturday, August 26, 2023, between the hours of 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. at St. Mary's Church, located on Goshen Avenue. Have a motion, please?
Motion.
Steve, second. Vernon on the second. Questions, comments? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Next is a resolution to authorize Gentech LDT to install or reinstall the generator located at its current location at the sewer plant and relocate it to its new location at the sewer plant, not to exceed a value of $35,400, and to authorize Liberty Iron Works to utilize a crane to remove the unit from its current location to the new location at a cost not to exceed $2,100. And all of the bidding and documentation was performed by our village engineer, James Farr. Have a motion, please? Vernon on the motion. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. So with that particular subject is, we went through this over a couple of meetings ago, but at the sewer plant during its renovations, it was said that the generator that was in place was not going to be capable of handling the current and updated sewer plant. So they went out in 2018 and rented a generator for $5,500 a month, and it has been there since 2018. And we've wasted tons and tons of money. That is not refundable, not recoverable, because in 2020, when the project was coming to a close, when the bands were created and the project was closed, that shut everything off. You can't make any modifications. So I can't apply to get approximately $300,000 back because someone said that it wouldn't work. So, long story short, next week, starting on Tuesday, we're going to be moving our current generator, or a good generator, to a new pad, and then through the week, towards the end of the week, the rental will be picked up and brought back to New Windsor. And we won't have to pay $5,500 anymore. And it's just a tremendous waste of money.
Real.
So in 7 months, we will recoup what
Exactly.
this is costing us to move it.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Let's see, where am I here? Okay, next is the resolution. This is for the paving for Burn Allen Park and Woodfield. So do we need a resolution to authorize Dominic Manero paving to blacktop the 90 by 90 area at Burn Allen Park to put that on top of the existing blacktop blacktop court for use of pickleball. 2 inches of blacktop and striping is included in the price. And also to blacktop 100 by 100 at the Woodfield Skateboard Park with 2 inches of blacktop. And again, these funds will be coming from the Recreation Fund from Rieger Homes when we receive that check shortly. Have that motion, please?
Motion.
Sue. Second? Vernon? Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Next is a resolution to authorize Guerrera Sun Concrete to install stamped concrete area at the E.J. McLaughlin Square in the amount not to exceed $8,500, which includes labor and material. Again, these funds are going to be used from Coach USA revenues. We rent 20 spaces out of our village parking lot at East 29, West 29 Main Street. And so out of those 20 spaces that we rent, the money that we're making from those revenues is going to pay for this concrete stamp. And where it's going is kind of where the Chinese restaurant is in the front there. We have some benches and so forth, and there's pebbles and little stones, and they're becoming trip hazards, and the stones are all over the sidewalk, and people are slipping and sliding, so a lot of the businesses have been, giving us some heads up about what was going on. So we're gonna, again, utilize that money to pay for that installation and put that to sleep. Okay? And that, and let's see, we have a motion. Steve, have a second?
Second.
Donna, any other questions, comments? Michael?
Mike Cristiano on Clark Street. You said you rent 29 spaces to Coach USA
Yes,
in that parking lot?
Yes.
Across from Orange County Bagel?
yes.
Is that the same as Orange County Transit?
We get paid, or who I invoice is Coach USA.
I see their buses there often, and I was just wondering.
I'm sorry?
I see their buses there often. I'm just wondering why they're utilizing the parking lot. I didn't realize that you guys had an agreement with.
Yeah, we have an agreement. They used to be over at Fulton Square. And then when the new owners came in at Fulton Square, they wanted more money for the parking spaces, as I understand it. And they came to the village, and the village agreed, I guess, on $2 a day for the 20 spots. And, it's Monday through Friday. So we invoice them on a monthly basis, and we're collecting that money, and we're gonna use some of this for some of the improvements downtown. Yeah. And while I'm talking a little bit of improvements downtown, we're also reaching out and trying to get a grant for $100,000 for beautification of our downtown with lighting and trees. I met with the engineer regarding the lighting. He's getting some pricing for the different types of lights we could put down there. We're looking for the old-fashioned gas lamps, both electric and or solar, to see what the price difference is, and I'm trying to minimize the construction piece of ripping up concrete and doing all those things. We have an arborist coming, I think, tomorrow to give us an idea of the type of tree that would be suitable for, that landscape. Looking for flowering trees, something, perhaps like a cherry blossom, different colors, and approximately, I think we're looking at potentially 10 trees, 12 trees. We're kind of targeting the area where the auto store is and the computer store used to be, that whole line, because there was a conduit put under the ground years ago to put lighting over there. Then that lighting got moved, I think, over to Burn Allen Park, so we lost the lights to do that. And with all the construction that's been done in the triangle, I'm not really sure if we even know where the conduit, as it goes underground, pops up over there, if we even know where it is. So I'm kind of really leaning towards the solar, because all we need is a pad and just bolt them down. And that would be, solar. They got some really nice lights that, gas lamp looking, like we already have there and what's in front of the library. So that'd be nice. So I think, yeah,
I was gonna say, and some people, this was a grant that had been offered in, what was it, 2020?
yeah, 2020 and then in 2022, while I think the comprehensive plan started, the message I got is that the village board put it on hold because they were busy with that particular project with the comprehensive plan. But in any event, that money's out there. They gave us a 60-day extension, and so we're chasing it pretty hard to get the numbers to them and then see if we can get this thing to happen.
It's through Scoofus's office that it was offered.
Right. So we'll see where that goes. Question?
Sorry,
It's all right.
to talk about beautification in the village, right? So, coming up 208 towards, say, Mark Street, you got the guardrails on each side of the street. Tonight, over at the church that's for sale, it's the blue house, I'm
Yep.
sorry, it's the blue
Right.
house. Guys there, weed whacking, not the village, some contractors, weed whacking all over the walkway, and then we said, I hope they blow it off the thing. Well, they blew it right into the road. Those guardrails, even over the little, was it Satterley Creek right there that goes across?
It's called Cemetery Creek.
Oh, Cemetery Creek. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they could maintain that. Somebody could. I don't know if that's private.
Well, the house is in contract.
Okay,
It's being bought by a couple,
okay.
and the story I hear is they love old houses and they want to fix it all up. All that asphalt is going to go away,
Oh, really?
so he'll own up to the guardrail and maintain it.
Oh,
It'll
that's
be his
great.
property. He's got the sidewalk, so it'd be a nice improvement.
Which house is this?
The blue house, it used to be
By St. Mary's Church.
right before St. Mary's.
Oh, that used to be the food pantry?
Yeah. Food pantry.
I'm sorry?
Used to be the food pantry.
Yeah, they used to have the pantry, and then they moved it up right to the other road off of Ahern, other drains. Yeah, so it's good.
Anything going on with that abandoned house on,
Other than I know it's a work in progress, just very slow. It's owned by a local electrician, and he's doing things, but, I saw some equipment in the backyard. He was doing something to the back of the house and near the garage, so.
the one on 208?
The white one, the big white one?
Yeah.
Yeah, before the stream, yep. Yeah. Next is a bond resolution, aggregate principal amount not to exceed $4.5 million for the specific purpose of liquidating accumulated deficits for our general water, sewer, and capital project funds. So you also have in your packet the resolution. Does anyone have any questions on that resolution? Council, is this something that should be read into the record, in your opinion?
It doesn't need to be, again, if the board has it. I mean, you certainly can share it with the public or make copies available, but, it's also about 4 or 5 pages of reading that
Yeah.
you'll probably put everyone to sleep.
And it pretty much covers what I've explained of borrowing that 4.5.
And is the 4.5 in addition to the 1.5 on the first page?
Yes. Yes. Yes, it is.
Mayor, I suggest maybe just reading the title, that kind of sums it up. The title on the second page of the document, after the letter from Hawkins Delafield, there's a,
The bolded area?
yeah, it begins the bond resolution, just so you can state the subject of the resolution.
Okay. So the bond resolution of the Village of Washingtonville, New York, adopted August 7, 2023, authorizing the liquidation of accumulated deficits for the general fund, water fund, sewer fund, and capital project fund, including the remaining principal amount of any outstanding budget deficit and/or revenues anticipation notes, stating the estimate cost of liquidating such deficit is $4.5 million, appropriating $4.5 million for such purpose, and authorizing the issuance of not to exceed 4.5 million in bonds for the village for such purposes.
So you just need a motion, someone to make a motion.
Do I have a motion on that, please?
Motion.
Steve on the motion. Have a second, please.
Second.
Susan. Questions, comments? And again, this is, all goes back to the previous 4 years of budgeting where the budgets were inaccurate from a revenue to an expense standpoint. Again, this is everything that we're trying to uncover. This is all unaudited information still at this point. We have 2 firms in-house trying to ascertain and get the paperwork together so that they can put an audit together. It's extremely, extremely painful. I can't, it is super sad, to be honest with you. I'm like up to my chin in what we're trying to do to recover and get this place back on its feet. You know, it's the last 4 years of potentially $400,000 overspending over 4 years, plus the $1.6 million of checks that were written by the mayor in 2 weeks with no resolutions, no meetings. It's really bad. The good note, we do have New York State Controller's Office in the house. They are beginning their risk analysis, and you know, that process will work its way through. They're all looking and getting information as fast as we can give it to them when we can find it. And if it's not found, then their reports will reflect what's the story. And I really believe people need to answer to this and understand, you know, why.
And there are things, we're finding little bits here and there.
Well, we are finding some we're also finding, like again today, we're trying to order a part for a truck, and we go to the supply house, and we haven't been there, I guess, in some period of time, but we got there, and they're saying that we can only pay cash because we're on a credit hold. And so we called up their office and find out what's going on. This is a nationwide company, and they said, well, we have open invoices over 90 days. I said, how far over 90 days? She goes, 2022. I said, well, yeah, that's slightly over 90 days. So, you know, we got the invoices. In this particular one, it was only close to $5,000. That was, you know, a low one. I'm not sure if, I know we talked about it, but the last meeting there was Cooper Electric, and that was somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000. So, and these are multiple year invoices that are just had not been paid, and they stopped sending invoices because they just gave up. And the only way we're finding out about this stuff is that we're reaching out to these different vendors at different times, and this is the story that they're telling. So a lot of stuff was never paid on time.
You can't get a credit card.
And that's pretty sad. So.
Yeah, back to other topics.
So, yeah, we have our motion, we have our second. Any other questions, comments, anyone from the audience? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Let's see. Next is a last minute resolution that popped in today from one of our local homes that we have here for men and women that live at the end of the village, and they had somebody pass away recently, very recently, and they called to see if they could go to one of our parks and do a little ceremony for the person and float some balloons and stuff like that. So it's in your agenda today. Nothing's really needed per se. There's gonna be about 10 people.
Were you requiring insurance?
No.
Okay.
You know, she was nice enough to call. They could have just went to the park as 10 people and had fun and you know, done their you know, their memories of this person. So with that, just that we have it, we'll just formally say that we need a resolution to authorize a facility use request form to rehabilitation support services for Memorial Balloon Send-Off on Friday, August 11th, from 11 a.m. to 11:45 a.m. at El Vernon Park. Motion, please.
Motion.
Steve. Second is Vernon. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Okay, what else? I had something. No, I don't. Okay. Next is a resolution to authorize the scheduling of a public hearing to consider amendments to the village code concerning the terms and appointments of the Architectural Review Board, the Board of Ethics, and the Zoning Board of Appeals, to be held on Tuesday, September 5th at 7 p.m. Have a motion, please?
Motion.
Have a second, please? Stephen Donovan. Questions, comments? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. I need a motion to authorize the budget transfers and amendments as necessary to effect the necessary transfers of funds to pay warrants. Motion?
Motion.
Steve, second, please. Vernon on the second. Questions, comments? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Next portion is public comment for anything that you thought about between now and the beginning. Okay, if not, Michael, you got anything? Come on.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, Ed.
Dave Dunn, One Lincoln Drive, Washington. I know you guys just inherited a mess, okay?
Say at least.
Yeah, well, from the past board, if there's anything criminal, we gonna prosecute to the limit? Is this board gonna go after them to the limit if it's illegal?
I think New York State would do their due diligence and do what they need to do. Because if you look at case history that's out there, and maybe our council could enlighten us on some of this, but, yeah, I mean, I've seen just recently, I think it was down in Rockland County, that someone was arrested for something. So
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that if we come across any conduct that, indicates criminality, that would be referred to the appropriate authority, the attorney, or the attorney general. And that also doesn't rule out, civil actions if we find that there were improper acts taken, that the village does have a cause of action against anyone.
thank you. Thanks, Ron.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Any other questions from you?
Just quickly,
Yeah.
is there a law that the budget has to be balanced every year?
Is there a law that it needs to be balanced every year?
New York
It's a good
State
question, Brian.
I mean, it's not so much a law of balance, but you set a budget and you're expected to operate within that budget, but there, can be circumstances where, there are transfers or borrowing or things that happen, but generally, you're not permitted to exceed your budget within the year that you set unless you somehow, finance it by some other means. So does it actually have to be, per se balanced? I don't know the law that says that, but it says you set your budget, that's it. You have a tax levy and you have to operate within that budget for the year. That's all you have. But that doesn't mean someone couldn't just decide to write checks and, as may have been the case here, and just pass it on to the next administration. And by the way, that wouldn't be a criminal law. I mean, that's a, municipal law issue. Again, so if anything comes down to criminality though, then we would make the referral. And I want to be clear, I don't, have evidence of criminality at this point. I think we clearly have evidence of complete negligence and, improper actions, but that's part of what the controller is doing right now.
Thanks. Any other comments?
We just need to be patient. We thought maybe 2 to 3 months the comptroller office would be in here, and when I spoke to her, she told me 6. So,
Take it
it'll
as
get
it
figured
goes.
out, it's just gonna take a little bit of time.
questions, then could I have a motion to adjourn into executive session to discuss personnel contract issues? We have a motion, have a second, please?
Second,
Second, Susan.
and so the public knows no decisions will be made.
And motion passes 5-0. We'll jump into executive session. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending tonight's meeting.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too.